Virgo, when it comes to your 2026 forecast, I believe congratulations are in order, because this is the first year since 2011 that Neptune will have officially moved out of your seventh house, the territory of relationships and partnerships in actual houses and solar houses. What this means is that this is the first year in a long time, we're talking 14 years, that you will not have Neptune shrouding, confusing how it is that you interact with others. This is a year in which you are going to be able to see people for who they are. Hallelujah. And I know that I'm talking to a very realistic earth sign. Virgo placements are incredibly hardworking. They are incredibly witty. They are incredibly intelligent, but they do have a blind spot. And your blind spot for the past 14 years has been your interactions with others. It could have been incredibly hard to see people for who they actually were. Now, Neptune is a very spiritual planet. So some of you could have had certain experiences interacting with other people where they catalyzed your own soul's development. You could really see other people for their potential, who they could be. You could really peer into people's soul that exists deep, deep down. It's not to say that all of it is a fantasy or an illusion, but the challenge is when we see the potential in someone, when we see the soul of someone, that does not necessarily mean that they have the ability to arise to what you saw within them. And people are not projects, Virgo. And within the last 14 years, you may have found in this effort to pull out the potential and to unconditionally love these individuals, it required them stepping up to the plate. And many individuals did not. Neptune energy definitely operates on a spectrum. Some of you could have dated artists and musicians throughout this time, very spiritual individuals. Some of you could have dealt with deceivers, con men. Some of you could have felt like you were sold a dream and then you go to reach for it and there was nothing there. And it could have been incredibly challenging for the past 14 years or so, Virgo, to be able to deduce who someone is without the rose-colored sheen of who they could be, or the artistry that you saw within them, the magic you saw within them, the potential that you saw within them. People are not projects, Virgo, and you have learned that. Saturn in your seventh house has made you learn that. Now, in 2026, the focus shifts and brand new opportunities are opening up for you, all of which we'll be covering within this video. I want to highlight that when it comes to all of the videos within my 2026 horoscope series, 12 Days of Cosmos, I tell the story of your sky through the lens of houses or solar houses. What does this mean? This means that I recommend listening to 2 videos within the series. I recommend listening to your rising sign. That will be your most accurate peek at your 2026. I additionally recommend listening to your sun sign. Your rising sign sets your actual houses, which will always be the most accurate. Solar houses add another layer of significance. It's a technique in which we pull the sun into the first house and set up the houses accordingly. So basically, that's why I'll mention solar houses. It's not referring to your actual houses that's set by your rising. It's referring to that technique. And this horoscope is told through the lens of whole sign house system. If you utilize a different house system, feel free to listen to the rising signs next to you, as some of these transits may be transiting a different house within your chart. I feel like I'm having to give all of the details here because I'm talking to my Virgos, and I'm so grateful that you are here. If you are not familiar with me or my cosmic corner of the internet, hi, my name is Haley Comet. I am a Virgo moon and Virgo rising. So just between us, Virgo horoscopes are some of my favorites because it's always interesting to see what we are all in store for. We're all in this together. And I do all sorts of content here on the channel, all signs forecast. When we have big major shifts within the cosmos, I do a weekly astrology podcast called Magic Monday, where I break down the astrology of every single week and how it is that you can co-create with it in order to live with more alignment and flow. So if that feels to be in alignment with you and it meets your high Virgo standards, I would so appreciate a like, a subscription, a comment, sending it to another Virgo within your life. Any little bit of engagement is so deeply appreciated by me. I have 2 opportunities to dive more into 2026 astrology if you feel so inclined. The first is my Magic 2026 Virgo edition. This is a 2-hour plus video plus a 40-page PDF written and channeled for you, Virgo, looking at each month. So within this forecast, we're talking about year themes, but if you are trying to plan your year, which month is the most auspicious for vacation, what retrogrades will be happening, where they will be impacting your chart, what months would be really favorable to launch, you'll want to check that out. I talk you through every month the blessings and opportunities of each, the challenges of each, as well as affirmations that I craft from my heart to yours for you to continue to co-create with the cosmos, because that's truly what I believe that astrology can be used for, is a tool in order to meet the astrology halfway and flow with the energy where it's already flowing and going, rather than forcing what we think it should be. You know, we'll get into the South Node in Virgo of it all, but Virgos have been doing a lot of work around releasing control and attachment to a plan, for better and for worse. We'll get into it. The other opportunity is we're doing group classes in January around the Capricorn new moon. Within that class, you will get your personal chart read, your personal transits read, and we will have an opportunity to co-create, to plant seeds for our year, knowing that information around what the year is already presenting for us and seeking to work with it. Work smarter, not harder. I'm talking to earth signs. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Virgo 2026. Act 1, where your story begins. As much as Virgo placements would like things to be neatly categorized, organized, and divided, that's not how energy works. So the astrology from 2025 and 2026 is different, and we'll get into where, but it's not so neatly organized by the calendar year that the digit changes and all of a sudden all of the energy and all of the events that transpired in 2025 are completely over. There is a little bit of energy that carries over. So let's talk about where your story starts, where your year begins, and the work that you've been doing. Virgo, you have had some pretty challenging transits. How are we doing? I just want to start there and do a wellness check. How are you? Because since March 2023, Saturn has been in Pisces, which is your opposite sign, which means in actual houses or solar houses, this has been impacting your one-to-one connections. Some of you who are in serious long-term relationships could have had certain challenges within the union. Saturn is the planet of commitment. So there could have been an energy around, are we doing this? Are we committing to the next level of our relationship? Or are the stresses, the burdens, the challenges that are on us, are they too heavy to bear? Even if your relationship is solid, this could have been a time that really forced you to do the work, to really look at yourself as a partner and do the necessary work there, as well as to show up for the connection. You could have found that your partner was very busy at this time, very stressed at this time, had a lot on their plate, which also could have brought some tension to the union. Some of you could have found the pressure was too much and you are out of a relationship. You know, Saturn energy will pressurize the territory that it goes through, and if there are any cracks in the foundation. If a connection is not rooted to stand the test of time, Saturn will reveal that. And Saturn can be harsh. Saturn can be heavy. Saturn can be depressing, to be forthright. And with Saturn in your seventh house, if you are single or open to love, you could have felt like it was just one karmic lesson after another. You could have felt very pessimistic about relationship altogether. All men are like this, all women are like this, it's all like this. What's the point? You could have felt very pessimistic about marriage altogether. There could have been an energy where not really feeling like you could trust someone else. And Neptune's influence absolutely added onto that, which we'll get into. But this could have been a bit of an isolating time around recognizing certain people who you thought were going to be there for you were not. And sometimes Saturn does bring about certain karma that has transpired. sometimes Saturn in the 7th house, if there is any sort of relationship or connection, which there's outstanding ties or loose ends, sometimes Saturn kind of makes us confront that, not always necessarily with that person, but within our own journey as well, really contemplating the foundations that our relationships are built upon. Because as I highlighted in the intro, you've had Neptune in this sector since 2011. You got a brief break last year in 2025, but from January onward of this year, you will never experience Neptune in your 7th house via actual houses or solar houses again. And that's a huge chunk of time. Like, some of you may have never even experienced what it's like to be in a relationship or to be partnered without Neptune in your 7th house. It's like a new frontier for you. Like, some of you could have had certain formative romantic entanglements and just dancing with another person in this time that Neptune has been in your 7th house. And so Saturn could really make you recognize what illusions you've been in terms of relationships, or what spells you've been cast, because Neptune fundamentally has to do with fantasy. And sometimes this can show up in sinister ways, where we have an acknowledgement of a relationship that we were in when we were younger and how they warped our reality and made certain things feel true when they're not true. And just the grief that you feel for that past version of you thinking, oh, this is just what a relationship is. That's just normal. You could have found at this time, especially with Saturn there, recognizing what I thought was normal within relationship and partnership is not normal. I'm not ever saying we need to fit into some conventional society approved idea of what relationships could be. I mean, a lot of you are having a Uranus transit. You don't need to be like anyone else, but more so where things that were detrimental or even dangerous for your spirit, where that was told to you or sold to you around, well, this is normal. This is just what it means to be married. This is just what it means to be in a relationship. And it doesn't necessarily need to be so nefarious. Some of you could have just had a very kind of fairy tale vision of relationship and really felt the fall from that pedestal that you had built relationships upon. You know, you could have been really looking for someone else to save you. And Saturn energy, being the stark, harsh planet that it is, could have really popped that bubble, like broken you out of that illusion around only you can save yourself. Nobody's coming to save you. And sometimes with Neptune energy, we idealize a lot. We romanticize, you know, one day my prince will come type energy. And listen, I'm talking to very realistic Virgos, but there is a blind spot when it comes to Virgos and having Pisces in the 7th house, this desire to want to be saved. And maybe that was the work around no one's coming to save me. And because I'm no longer building up this fantasy around someone's going to come in and take me away from all of my troubles and struggles, I'm able to build a relationship in a more solid, grounded way. And, you know, sometimes with Neptune energy, it's also feeling the sadness around, gosh, I was told that relationships were going to be like this, and confronting the reality of what they are. Because you know more than anyone else, relationships can be a battlefield. Because maybe for some of you, you've been in a relationship this entire time and it hasn't necessarily been nefarious or deceptive or anything like that. You could have found that you were fantasizing about people perhaps outside of the connection. Neptune energy can really romanticize and idealize. And sometimes we mentally or fantasy-wise will have crushes on different individuals looking for this ideal. And no one person is going to have 100% of the qualities that you seek. Certainly, keep your standards high. Saturn has been revealing that. Some of you could have found your standards were too low. You're giving people too many chances with this Neptune energy there. But for some of you, there could have been an energy around not recognizing what it is that you have or what it is that you have built with someone in this effort around wanting that fairy tale or the person who's going to come in and sweep you away and take you away from all of your problems, which again, Virgo energy, you handle things, okay? You make things happen. I'm not saying any of you are just locked away in your tower waiting for someone to come save you, but Neptune energy, you could have found more of your internal dreamy energy was around relationship. And sometimes we utilize relationship crushes as an avoidance tactic, where if our current relationship is asking us to go to a deeper layer of intimacy or vulnerability, both of which are themes this year, we'll get into that with Neptune and Saturn in Aries. Sometimes it's easier to just idealize someone else, like think the grass is greener around, well, this person wouldn't make me look at these parts of myself, or this person wouldn't leave their sweaty socks on the ground, or this person wouldn't chew with their mouth open. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but some of you could have really had to look at how it is that you utilize fantasy or romanticization or jumping from relationship to relationship as a technique of avoidance. And some of you could have even tried to avoid the issue of whether or not this is a relationship you want to be in. You know, Neptune energy can give people way too many chances. You could have found that your spouse or individuals that you were in a relationship with struggled with alcohol at this time, or a little into Lululand, like acting like they're going to be this rock star as soon as someone listens to their demo. Or I know I tried 20 other business ideas and I abandoned them the moment that hard work came in, but this one's going to make us a millionaire. Like, a lot of you could feel a little jaded after all that you've been through with Neptune in the 7th house, and really wanting someone who is who they say they are and doesn't build up a dream just to crash land you back to reality. Because that's really the nature of Neptune, is it can be so dreamy. It could be so transcendent. It could be so otherworldly. Some of you might have had crushes or relationships that were just otherworldly and could have been very spiritual. And I don't mean to discount that, but Neptune has a way of putting us on a pedestal or putting someone else on a pedestal and then crash landing us back to reality. And that could be tough. That's why Neptune energy can be so challenging, in that it's not up and down how Uranus is up and down, but it's up and down in terms of like our own chemicals. Because Neptune governs, you know, the high, the rush. And then after we have a rush or we have a high, our system, in order to balance itself out, crash lands down to reality, and we feel very depressed and like things lack color until we get another hit. Or individuals who come in and love bomb you and they sell you this dream and they pump you full of all of these chemicals that are running through your brain, where when they take away their attention, it just crash lands you and you need another hit. You could have found that was very much how it is that you have been interacting with people throughout this transit. And from January onward, you will not experience that moving forward. The dream is over. The fog is lifting. Clarity is coming. And another element of Neptune in the 7th house is deception. So some of you could have found out at some point that someone that you were with was not who they told you that they were. They could have had a whole other double life. Some of you could have felt very scammed and deceived by one-on-one partnerships. Some of you could have had certain secrets revealed, or just recognized that you had the wool pulled over your eyes at some point in time from now back until 2011. And this doesn't always show up in intimate one-to-one connections. It can also show up in business partnerships. So some of you could have been deceived by a business partner. Someone could have sold you a dream and took advantage of you, took advantage of your kindness. Because even outside of marriage partners, serious long-term relationships, and business partners, 7th house is also other. It's the general public. And so with Neptune in this territory, you could have found that it was very hard to deduce people and their character accurately. Now, Neptune energy can be healing and renewing, because Neptune energy can see to the soul. And sometimes when people are going through a very challenging time, you believing in them, seeing the soul in them, seeing the potential in them, that can be the ray of sunshine. That can be the burst of hope that gets them through a challenging time. Neptune energy will allow you to see people. You know, Neptune is around reflection. So being able to reflect to others who they are and who they could be, and their hopes and their fears. You could have really made people feel seen at this time by being a bit of a mirror for other individuals. But there also could have been an energy in that where you mirrored to people parts to themselves that they did not want to see. And you could have felt very misunderstood at this time. You could have had certain people who twisted the narrative about you or gaslit you about who you were. It could just lead to very confusing interactions with others around, why are you being so cruel to me? All I did was try to help you. Why are you talking badly about me? All I did was reflect you back to you. Like, there could have been confusing dynamics like this. And with Neptune energy, it blurs bounds. So it could have been incredibly hard at this time to draw a fine line in the sand around where they end and you begin. Like, everything could have gotten very murky. You could have found at this time that naturally you had this ability to morph into what other people wanted you to be, or who they expected you to be, or what would be the most helpful for them with the Virgo energy. And with Neptune leaving this territory, there is a nudge, especially with Uranus's story this year, around, I want to be me. I don't want to be who you want me to be. And maybe I've tried to be who other people have wanted me to be since 2011, and it just left me confused. It left me taken advantage of. And sometimes we just do this naturally. Neptune is a very psychic planet. So just naturally feeling into what other people wanted you to be and morphing into that, being the dream, being the ideal, which some of you could have really leveraged helpfully. You could have found at this time, if you have any sort of like one-to-one work, you could have found that you really mirrored to people or reflected to people certain spiritual truths about themselves, which can be gold for the soul if someone is in a space where they want to see it. That's the thing. Sometimes people don't want to see what you're reflecting to them, and they will make you the enemy. They will demonize you. And Neptune energy can just leave confusion around, what did I do? And you could have even had certain people within your orbit who told you certain things, so much so that you started to believe it around, you're so this, you're so that. Neptune can twist and distort and shapeshift. And so you could have found that other people did that to you, telling you they were this, and then the reality is this, or the experience of merging with them and interacting with them left that residue on you around, am I awful like they say that I am? Am I this like they say that I am? And some of you have really had to set limits as it relates to your compassion around recognizing my compassion must have limits. Some of you could have had one-to-one connections within your orbit of individuals who were struggling in some sort of way, and you had to make the tough decision to no longer enable them, and recognizing that some work is not yours to do. You know, you have recognized that you can't do other people's push-ups for them, and you can reflect things to people about themselves, very profound reflections, but that does not mean that they are in a space to receive it and integrate it. You can be compassionate and selfless with someone else, and that doesn't mean that someone will have the capacity to love you. You know, sometimes people will punish you for loving them because they hate themselves so much. So they see you loving them unconditionally and selflessly, and they're like, well, I know I'm a piece of poop, I'm going to tear down this person. You know, you could have really had to encounter some truths about human nature, and it can leave a lot of you stepping into 2026 feeling a bit disillusioned, feeling a bit jaded as it relates to one-to-one connections, or very mindful around individuals who come in seeming too good to be true, or individuals who try to sell you a dream, who try to bring you into their reality. You can find that with Neptune departing this sector, you are really wanting to see people clearly, continuing to take the magic of Neptune, if it was available to you, around reflecting spiritual truths to other individuals and seeing the soul within other individuals to inspire them to embody that fully, and being able to energetically meet and match what could be the most medicinal or helpful for other people. But you are leaving behind the rose-colored glasses. You are leaving behind the lack of boundaries. You are leaving behind believing the potential without seeing credentials. Okay, that is the vibe that you're going into 2026 with. And so you are wrapping this journey up. You are taking in the lessons and you are carrying it forward. But I want to highlight, if you have Virgo placements between 28 to 29 degrees, that means you will have one last Saturn or Neptune opposition. You will have a Saturn opposition if it's 28 or 29, and a Saturn and Neptune opposition if you have any Virgo placements at 29 degrees, which is quite a combination. But you've got this. It happens at the beginning of the year, so you are wrapping up a bow on those lessons and looking forward to what else the cosmos have in store for you. Act 2, the plot twist. What this year may catch you by surprise? What record scratch moments the cosmos is cooking up for you? I want to begin with Uranus. In April, Uranus will shift into Gemini, which is your fellow mutable sign and your fellow Mercury ruled sign. And this indicates that it settles into your 10th house, where it will remain until 2033. The plot twist for you, Virgo, is that some of you are drastically shaking up what you do within your career. You're drastically shaking up your reputation. Some of you are drastically in your DGAF era. After Neptune's been in the 7th house and been like, I tried to be nice. I tried to give people exactly what they wanted. I gave way too many chances. I'm done trying to be what you want me to be. It's time to be me. And that could be showing up in how it is that you relate with the world altogether. You could be really wanting to do your own thing, march to the beat of your own drum. This is the territory of your chart that governs career, public persona. So some of you could be rebelling within your career. Everybody wants me to do this, but I want to do this. Some of you could be launching something new, doing something new. Maybe you've been building a side project and you debut it out into the world. Maybe you have been doing your business in a certain way, and this is the year that you decide to pivot and do something totally different. Uranus is coming in to electrify how it is that you relate to the world at large, and some of you could create something that is of the future, that sets the trends. Some of you are like in this mad scientist era this year. And what I mean by that is you're owning your brilliance and you're just being weird and goofy and doing you. In terms of your business around, I don't need to be perfect. What a concept for Virgo placements, right? I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be me. And some of you are actually finding success around doing things differently, or at least not feeling like you have to play into what society expects of you. Like maybe if you're a nail artist, you start doing some really funky designs, or maybe you decide that you want to have the first overnight nail salon. You're like, I am a night owl. Why do I feel like I have to have my nail salon open 9 to 5? Like, let's do an all-night nail salon where other people like me, other night owls, can get their nails done. I'm not implying all of you need to go out and do nail salons, but what I am saying and urging is this is a year to think differently when it comes to career. What are people not doing? You could like unintentionally set the wave, set the trend. And with Uranus energy, disrupt by being a little weird and by detaching what people have to say about you. Like people could be like, oh, they're so weird that they're doing this or they're not doing this, how other people do. And I'm just getting an energy that a lot of you might like unintentionally be the blueprint this year. And not even that you mean to. It's just you could be really aligned with the future in terms of your career, because that is what Uranus is about, is the future. So you can find that you are in the right place at the right time, or even just certain projects that you've been working on, you can find that they were weird at the time that you were working on them, or the times that the topic was interesting to you. It could have been seen weird and nobody's into that, and something else could be trendy at the moment. But it's like you then launch the thing that's been a year in development and it reaches the masses at the right place in the right time. Like you can find that the more that you chisel the energy of weirdness and eccentricity and genius, the more you are in the right place at the right time. But you do need to let go of how you are perceived by others. If some of you have been in a certain career path where you chose it because you felt like it's what you were expected to do, this could be a year that you're like, I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do. Like this could be a year in which you are rebelling a bit. Like maybe some of you chose a career path because it's what your parents wanted you to do. And this could be a year that you're trying something new. And many people aren't going to be sure what to make of you this year, Virgo. I feel like if people from your past try to come back around with that Mercury retrograde. We'll get into it in a moment. I feel like they're not even going to recognize you. Like anyone who's like coming back around, even from like 3 years ago, won't even recognize you because it just feels like you are in such a different era. And it's just so important to you in this next era to not perform, to not conform. I just feel like there's an energy around you've tried and you've people pleased and you've fawned, and there's an energy around no more. Neptune's out of my 7th house. I'm sick of it. You know, if we do not have boundaries, we will watch ourselves become someone that we do not want to be. You know, it's a wild thing when an empath, a sensitive, a kind-hearted human has enough. You know, you turn a corner when you've had enough around, I tried to be what you wanted me to be, and still you took advantage of my kindness, and still you asked for more, and still it wasn't good enough, whatever it was. And this extends beyond our one-to-one contact. Some of you could have felt that with clients or with your career or with your boss around, I tried to do what you wanted me to do. You know, you're a Virgo, so you're very diligent. And there could have been an energy around feeling like all of that diligence, all of that people pleasing, all of that going above and beyond, it just left you feeling this energy around, wow, and still. And Uranus energy is like no more. You can find that you are really in this rebellious place from now until 2033. Some of you could have shakeups around work and career altogether. You know, I always say with Uranus energy, sometimes we are the plot twist around, I'm not conforming. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm dressing how I want to dress. I'm marketing in the way I want to market. I'm branding in the way that I want to brand. Like some of you could have a massive shakeup when it comes to a business, new brand, new logo, new way of reaching the public, new offerings, things like this. And sometimes the career is the plot twist where our industry changes, and Uranus energy and even Pluto in your 6th house, it does require you to be nimble, to be ready to pivot if you need to around, okay, we were going to do this, but now this technology is obsolete. You got to pivot. Or maybe I had a certain idea of what I thought my career was going to be, but now it just feels like that is not aligned. I got to pivot. You got to stay light on your feet. You know, you've got Gemini in the 10th house. So I don't think that's going to be challenging for you specifically, but Uranus energy does ask that. And this plot twist energy, courtesy of Uranus and Gemini, is going to be the most relevant if you have Virgo placements between 0 and 5 degrees. That means this year you will experience a Uranus square. And I do need to be forthright that with Uranus energy, it can be incredibly erratic, unpredictable. Things can come out of nowhere, and you can just feel quite restless when you're having Uranus square, especially if you're in a career path where it's like, it's fine, it's good, but it's limiting my individuality. It's requiring me to be more consistent than I want to be, or it feels very rigid. You know, Uranus energy is like trying on a sweater that's too tight, you know, when you're trying to take it off and it just feels like it's closing in around you and you're just like, get it off of me. Like some of you could be feeling this suffocating feeling when it comes to your career, when it comes to opinions that people have of you, when it comes to your bosses, your authority figures. There just could be a desire around, I just need to break free. And with that Uranus square, you could make that decision. That decision could be made for you, but it's just important to pivot as well as be you. You know, I don't want to be corny. We've all heard this a million times over, but it is truly better to be hated for what you are than loved for what you are not. You know, I think that's really relevant with Neptune leaving the 7th house, where if you try to be adored by everybody, if you try to be for everybody, you're for nobody. And with Uranus energy, be your wacky, weird self and call in the right people. You know, I think a lot of you are letting go of perfectionism, and that's been alive with South Node in Virgo, North Node in Pisces, which is your next plot twist of the year ahead. Now, same as Uranus and Gemini, this is a story and a transit that we are bringing with us from 2025. So Uranus, we got like a brief taste of last year. It transited for a little bit and then retrograded back. So some themes may come back around from 2025, particularly around career and disruption when it comes to Uranus. And then North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo shifted in January 2025. Now that's when they shifted, but the first eclipse was September 2024. And even though the nodes shift out of your sign this August, we will still have one more eclipse next year. So the eclipses aren't neatly concentrated to the times that the nodes are literally in the signs that they land in, but for a majority of eclipses, they are. So let's get into this journey, because if you're familiar with eclipses, if you're familiar with North Node, South Node, this is absolutely a plot twist sort of energy. Eclipses represent fated karmic timeline disruptions. Fated things clicking into place, outdated parts of your reality falling away. And a lot of times during eclipses, there is a lot of chaos. It can feel very volatile. There could have been certain things that came to an end last year that you still are trying to grapple with or still trying to make sense of around, I just don't understand why that had to go that way. I just don't understand why that happened. This was supposed to be the plan. This was supposed to work, whatever it may be. And overall, with this journey with North Node and Pisces, you've been guided, and we as a collective have been guided to trust in the divine and trust in your soul. You know, we can't use our minds in order to get to where it is that we are going. You know, it's South Node Virgo. We might have had a certain plan, but that doesn't mean that it's the divine's plan. And sometimes divine's plan just doesn't make sense. Sometimes we receive all of the signs and we dismiss it because it doesn't match up within our mind of what we think things should be. You know, as I highlighted, I'm also a Virgo placement, so I'm with you for all of these energies. I just want to share, as part of this journey, you know, I received divine intervention, if you want to call it that, around something that was not the case. Basically, the universe was like, this is not it for you. And I was like, no, but it is it for me. It's great on paper. It would make sense because A, B, and C, this is it, this is it, this is it. And when I say the universe was screaming at me to get out of the situation that I was in, that I was just wading deeper and deeper in. And I just kept ignoring it because mentally it did not compute. And sometimes we don't know why something is not meant for us, not fated, not aligned. And sometimes we don't have to. You know, it didn't mentally compute to me. Like, I got all of the signs. Like, it's wild. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours with you around how many signs the universe gave me to not go down this path. First decision that I made to go in this direction, my car broke down. The next time I made the decision, I got a parking ticket. It was like all of these things were happening every time I went in this direction. That was basically the universe like, no. And you could just say, okay, Haley, comment. But at that point you were driving, you know, a 2002 Honda. Like, yeah, cars break down, and yeah, sometimes we get parking tickets, but it was like every single time something would happen. And even on top of that, it was like intuitively, I knew it was off. My gut felt so off about it, and I would flare up in rashes all of the time. I had constant anxiety. My dreams told on the situation. Like, I was receiving all of these signs and knowing that this was not it for me. And even just like the knowing around every time I went in this direction, I felt worse and worse and worse and more disconnected from spirit. Sometimes that's all of the knowing that you know, that in and of itself, in addition to the slew of other signs the universe was throwing my way. But mentally I was like, but I don't have proof yet. Or I don't know why this is not for me. So I didn't go off what my soul knew because my mind was waiting for proof. And listen, we're smarty pants, okay? We're Virgos. We're ruled by Mercury. We look for the data. We want the receipts. We want the proof. Sometimes waiting for the proof or the why, it makes you even deeper and deeper, more ensnared in a situation that is not for you. And Pisces is very spiritual energy. You don't want anything that is not for you. No matter how good it looks on paper, things that are not aligned with your soul's path will lead to confusion. They will lead to, honestly, darkness, like feeling more and more disconnected from your own soul the further and further you walk down this particular path, because it's not meant to be. And things that are meant to be cannot click into place while you're still dancing with what is not meant for you. And so some of you could still be reeling from something around, okay, universe, I get it. It wasn't meant to be, but dang, like I don't understand why. And maybe with the energy of North Node Pisces, we're being asked to surrender to the mystery of it, or just relax into the knowledge around it was not meant to be. Maybe that's the only answer or closure that we need. that it just wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. But it doesn't make it not hurt. You know, the eclipses since 2024, like I said, have largely been in your first house and your seventh house. So there could have been a lot around relationships, as we've been talking about, as well as about self. You've had South Node in the first house. So you've been on this journey around like, who am I? And some of you have potentially relaxed very rigid expectations of who it is that you are. Again, with South Node Virgo, we're being asked at this time to lead less with mind and more with soul, lead less with plan, more with flow. And that's not necessarily comfortable for you all who have strong Virgo. You want a plan. You want things to make sense. And that might not have been part of the recipe of what it is that you've been navigating. And it could have led to some plot twists, especially around the past eclipses as well as the eclipses this year. That energy can continue. But the co-creative opportunity, because if you're familiar with me and my channel, I'm all about co-creative astrology, how it is that we can work with this. Yes, South Node Virgo can make us feel lost, disillusioned. I used to be this, and now I don't recognize myself anymore. But the gift of this is that you have an opportunity this year to intentionally detach yourself from ways of viewing you that are no longer serving you. Like even Uranus and Gemini scoring the North Node and South Node in June echo that, where it's this energy around maybe you've always seen yourself as a workhorse, and this is a year in which you're experimenting with different ways of operating around. Maybe I don't need to burn myself out working so hard. Maybe my value is not tied up into how efficient and productive I am and how polite I am and how I play by the rules and how I get things done. Like maybe I'm changing that. Maybe I'm starting to see myself as a boss, as a business owner, or as someone who is not defined by how hard I hustle and grind. Maybe that's what I'm shifting. Maybe I'm shifting this need to have everything in control, to have everything planned out. Maybe I'm embracing more flow and keeping other people guessing and keeping myself guessing as well. Maybe I'm releasing this attachment to needing things done in a particular way in order to embrace people and things as they are. Maybe I'm even releasing the need to know with just the relaxing around it is what it is. Maybe I don't need to know why this opportunity was not for me, this person was not for me. If it was meant for me, it would have been for me. Because that's the biggest thing. When you're working with the nodes, when you have eclipses in your sign, you are dancing with destiny, Virgo. And when you're dancing with destiny, that means that what clicks into alignment this year is meant for you, fated. What departs your reality is also fated. It's like there's a bigger why at this time, which we may not see at this particular time. But the encouragement is not to do what I did, which is like la 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 when it comes to sign and signals, and really like trust. If it's not flowing, if it's not going, it's not meant to be, and I don't need to analyze it. I don't need to freak out about it. I don't need to conform and try to be something else in order to try to bring this opportunity or this thing back. I can just acknowledge it was not a fit. It was not aligned. And a lot of you could be releasing perfectionistic tendencies within yourself. You know, this suggests that you may have a way of viewing yourself around, I need to be perfect. I need to be in control. And Uranus this year could really just enliven and electrify the parts of you that just want to be free and wild. You know, Virgo energy typically likes to be very organized and come across in a certain way, which of course, sometimes in professional environments and things like that, there is a certain code of conduct and dress code and all of the things. But if you've been suppressing who it is that you are and even diminishing yourself, fighting with yourself in this effort to be perfect and liked and approved and validated by others, I see some of you reaching this place around no longer caring, like letting go of old ways of being. And a lot of you could also have certain themes coming alive as it relates to your body. You know, Virgo energy is very connected to their bodies. It's very mind-body energy. And with South Node going through your first house, your body could be going through some sort of transition. Even your style, your aesthetic can be going through some sort of change. And yes, South Node is around release, but To me, when I think of South Node in the first house, it's like chipping away at a marble block, around chipping away what is not the sculpture in order to get to the sculpture, where yes, you may be in this process of releasing certain parts of yourself, but it's in order to excavate the beauty and the authenticity that was there all along. And this year, North Node is in your 7th house, which does indicate gain through one-on-one. So some of you could be partnering with others, no longer stressed and disillusioned by Saturn and Neptune. Some of you could really experience gain and growth within relationships and experiencing the gain and growth around unconditionally loving this person for who they are. Yes, their soul, but like also what they are within your world. When we get awakened to that sort of unconditional selfless love, when we truly love someone for who they are, we also extend that same unconditional love ourselves as well, to have someone else love us and accept us for who we are. This is so random, but sometimes songs will come into my mind as I'm tapping into the energy. And I think this was from the Barbie movie or something. But basically, she was singing and she was saying, there's not a hair on your head that I would change. Which is so beautiful because, you know, Virgo energy, it's very much around improvement and dialing things in and wanting other people as well as ourselves to be the best that it could possibly be. And what a beautiful concept to just be like, hey, it's not that your hair looks good all of the time, but I would not change a hair on your head because it's you. And I'm in love with the beauty of who it is that you are. And you cannot hold someone within that lens without also extending that to yourself as well, because you recognize the beauty in God's creations or divine's creations around someone just being who it is that they're here to be, even if they have messy hair. Sometimes, or they chew with their mouth open, or what have you. Again, Saturn and Neptune has made you really require those that you partner with to show up within your reality and to meet your standards. And I'm not saying to back down on that, but what I am saying is that it's a beautiful thing to love and be loved for who it is that you are without feeling like the other person is a project or that you're a project. And sometimes that can really help you love yourself around having someone else who just loves you and just appreciates you for who you are and the magic of who you are. It can make you recognize, wow, all of those years that I felt like I had to deprive my body in order to be more conventionally attractive, or all of the years that I felt like I had to overachieve in order to feel loved. None of that is necessary here. You just love me for who I am. And so some of you could have experiences like that click into place this year. And with that, you also may be releasing certain elements of your independence, you know, not feeling like you have to do everything on your own and being open to help, being open to support from others, and being open to partnering with others. Like not just seeing things in terms of you, but in terms of the we. And definitely boundaries are necessary and wading into things intentionally. You know, I know that you've gone through it with Saturn and Neptune, and I'm assuming you're taking that lesson with you. But some of you, the plot twist might be finding someone, connecting with someone who's very fated, who's very aligned, who's very loving. And the eclipses I want to put on your horizon in terms of massive plot twists this year. So the first is the lunar eclipse in Virgo in March. This lands at 12 degrees. So if you have any Virgo placements between 7 to 17 degrees, this eclipse is going to be more impactful. And this is more so recognition around what needs to be released around self. Not losing yourself, but losing a version of self. And yes, sometimes, I mean, I've been in this too. We go through something with South Node first house where we kind of panic around the loss of control, around like, who am I? And it's acknowledging that, not feeling like we need to make it wrong or categorize it or understand it. And it's also knowing it's necessary. You know, I was just having a conversation today around sometimes when we're in an in-between of something, and we don't recognize who we are in the in-between, we reach for who we used to be for guidance. I need to reach back for the past because I don't recognize where I am now. But there's an invitation, especially with eclipses, to rather go to the other side, to meet who it is that we are on the other side. There's no past version of you who can guide you and coach you into territory that you have not been to before. And parts of getting there is being in the uncomfortable territory around where am I? What's going on? And so there can be an invitation around this lunar eclipse in Virgo around, yes, feeling the discomfort around what is life? Who am I? But also letting go of past versions of self in order to embrace who it is that you're evolving to be. And the other eclipse I want to put on your horizon is the lunar eclipse in Pisces at the end of August. This will be the most impactful for those of you who have Virgo placements between 0 to 9 degrees. This one will really sharpen into focus relationships, partnerships, and bring illuminations around what it means to really love another for who it is that they are, this unconditional acceptance energy. And this can be a soulmate energy, not to say every one of you is going to meet your soulmate on that day. And it's just important to know when we talk about seventh house, that seventh house is beyond romantic connection. It can also be soul-aligned partnerships clicking into place, soul-aligned contracts even clicking into place. So embracing what comes about at that time and knowing that when it comes to being a main character for eclipses, which is a story that you're closing out, it can be disruptive. It can be a plot twist, but these are sort of plot twists that are universally aligned. And so there is an ask to trust the process, as messy as it may feel. Act 3, character development. Let's talk about who it is that you are becoming within the year 2026. How you as the protagonist are stepping out of the movie of this year different than how you entered to this. And your ruling planet is quick, just quick as you are. Quick-witted, quick thinking, quick talking a lot of times. Your ruling planet is quick. So we less so look at this in terms of the signs and the shifts, but more so the overall dance of the planet that year. We look to your ruling planet. So I want to take a tour with you through the retrogrades and what themes may come about. So from February 25th to March 20th, Mercury will be retrograde in Pisces. And you may recall from the plot twist portion that yes, we do have an eclipse at this time. So you may expect some interesting developments around that time. Make sure to grab the Magic 2026 guide to figure out what exactly is coming up every single month. But nonetheless, the focus of this retrograde is about your relationships and completing the incomplete around them. You know, that eclipse at that time is a lot around self and identity and letting go of past versions of self. And with Mercury retrograde, you may be on like a walk down memory lane around past relationships and connections and what they made you believe about yourself and breaking the illusion. You know, at this point in time, Saturn and Neptune will have left the 7th house. So with Mercury retrograde, it could be a time that you're actually seeing things clearly, like looking back at old journals and photographs around, oh dear God, you were looking for validation in all of the wrong places, or gosh, I thought this was the love of my life, but it was actually just a trauma bond. Like there could be an energy where you're actually seeing things clearly. And sometimes with Mercury retrograde, yes, we do hear from people from our past, or there is some sort of delay as it relates to contracts, things like this. But you can find at this time, you're really wanting to intake all of the data, all of the lessons of 7th house affairs, which again has been put under scrutiny and pressure from Saturn since 2023 and Neptune since 2011. So Mercury retrograde can bring some reflection there, as well as knowing anyone who comes back around at that time, or if you feel more inclined to reach out to that person, it's not about the person, it's about you, especially with that lunar eclipse happening around that time. It's not about this person is coming back and they're the love of my life. It's around what within me needs to be closed out within this connection, or what was it that I was seeking to find within this particular relationship. And this year, your ruling planet Mercury is retrograde in the water signs. And so a lot of you could really be reflecting on your emotions. And water signs for you is your people houses. So really reflecting on how people have made you feel, really reflecting on the healing that is necessary around certain connections, or how it is that you want to meet people in a mutually beneficial way. You know, water nourishes, it gives the life. And so there may be reflections around how to really water the connections within your life, but also how hydrated you are. strange analogy, but like how much people are pouring into you and wanting that to be reciprocal and really reflecting on where that's alive within your world. The next retrograde extends from June 29th until July 23rd, and this is a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And this retrograde, the main focus of it is your friendships. This brings in reflections around your colleagues. If any of you have an audience of some sort, there could be a reflection on that, how to pour into them, how to nurture them, and how it is that they nourish you as well. You may find that you feel very sensitive at this time. Certain friends can make certain comments to you that you kind of ruminate or reflect around, what do they mean by that? Or there could be an energy around potentially feeling like you're pouring into other people and they're not pouring into you, or I do so much for you and you don't do the same for me. Some of you could hear from friends from the past, or even be like looking into people from your past, like not so much exes, but more so colleagues, like people within your social circle, like checking up on them or even being checked up on by those sort of people. Some of you could also be reflecting on visions from the past and if they make sense for your future. Again, a lot of you are going through some sort of career pivot with Uranus in the 10th house. And with Mercury retrograde, you could be reflecting like, oh, I always used to want to do this. And does that make sense for where it is that I'm going next? And the last Mercury retrograde this year is from October 24th until November 20th. And this is a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. So a lot of you could be really confronting and contemplating the truths that you did not say, the words that you did not say, which don't always need to be voiced to the person. If it is a person, it sometimes just needs to be put into a letter or just put out there. Some of you could be, standing up for yourself around something that has been lingering. Some of you could be really contemplating how it is that you use your voice, if you use your voice, and if you're scared to because of the power that is there, how it is that you can really empower your language can be an emphasis here. There can be reflections around your social media, your marketing, your sales at this time. Maybe your public persona is going through some sort of shift with Uranus at the top, and with Mercury retrograde, you're plotting and planning how to communicate that, how to put that out to the world. All in all, Virgo, I would say your character development this year is becoming more of yourself and honoring and understanding you can remain in your own energy as you interact with others. We can say that we are healed and evolved if we just kind of like isolate ourselves. And sometimes we're in that season of our life. And I'm not demonizing that whatsoever. Virgo is the hermit card. After all, I'm not demonizing that. There's certain seasons to be in. But sometimes we, isolate and we cut people off before we learn necessary lessons around, let me communicate my boundaries, or let me say this is not okay. Let me stand up for myself here. And sometimes when we get into other situations, the same themes come back around. And so sometimes with Mercury retrogrades in the 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses, whether it's with people from our past or just people like people from our past, sometimes lessons come back up for review around, okay, maybe last time you ghosted this situation. Where is it that you can face it? Where is it that you can say the scary thing? Where is it that you can speak up for yourself? Sometimes, especially as we're finding our voice and we're stepping into our power, it's easier for ourselves to isolate and cut ourselves off and be like, I'm so healed, I'm so evolved. And it's not to say that's not the case, but the work here in life school is how it is that we interact with others. Because human connections, it can be messy, it can be wonderful, it can be lovely. Like so much growth can be found as we interact with others, and it really makes life worth living, and it's worth the energy investment. It's worth the emotional investment, even if it's a little scary to be intimate or to be vulnerable, what have you. But you could find at this time you are really needing to work on the themes within your connections. Again, if certain relationships depart your life this year, you've got the nodes in your 1st and 7th houses. Those connections had outlived their purpose. But sometimes we run from a sticky situation, an uncomfortable conversation, just to find it down the line. And it may be helpful on these retrogrades to really learn the lesson, to say the thing, to work on the relationship, something like this. Act for supporting characters, what the other planets that we have not connected on are doing, or the other transits, because I've talked a lot about Saturn and Neptune leaving your opposite sign Pisces and thus your 7th house, which does bring relief, but I haven't talked about where they're going. They're not ejecting themselves out of the solar system. They are impacting a portion of your chart. The themes are less in your face than the work that you've been doing for some time now, but they are there. So let's get into it. Neptune will enter Aries late January and Saturn will enter Aries mid-February. The two get together in February as well, conjoining in a major alignment that has a lot of collective implications. I'm not going to get into that here. Let's talk about what this means for you. So Aries is your 8th house. So 8th house is merging and sharing. And you may have heard me throughout the course of this horoscope kind of pepper in, intimacy, vulnerability, because 8th house is how it is that we merge with others. And, you have discernment now based on what it is that you have navigated through, and you are utilizing that mindfully, or at least that would be my encouragement to do so. Because with Neptune in the 8th house, sometimes there are shady things as it relates to merged resources, our business partner hiding some money from us, our financial advisor doing something kind of shady with our money. And so my encouragement with Saturn there is be very intentional around who is managing your money, who you are doing business with, who you are merging assets with. Sometimes there can be tax issues that come about at this time. Sometimes our spouse goes through certain financial struggles or challenges. There also could be felt or perceived themes of loss at this time. And I want to be so clear because it's never my intention with any of the content on my channel to ever incite any fear whatsoever. You will never find that here. I don't think it does any good to freak out the Mercurials and give them something to overthink about. I'll always be straight up with you. But the reality is for most Virgos, it's not that you are literally dealing with grief or loss this year. So I don't want to plant that in your head. But what I am saying is some of you could be navigating some preliminary feelings of that, or almost like pre-grief, or there could be certain people within your orbit where you recognize I have a limited amount of time with them. I need to be urgent about the time that I spend with them. You could be really recognizing that we all go one day. And what is it that we want to do with our time? You could feel a lot of pressure around really wanting to anchor in your legacy. Maybe that's causing the Uranus and 10th house energies. You're like, I want to build something that outlives me. I don't have forever here. And this life is mine to build. Like this legacy is mine to leave. What do I want it to be? And Chiron will dabble in and out of this sector as well. Chiron is the wounded healer. So it can also bring in some winces, some ouches around grief of those who you have lost before and feeling the residue. Some of you could be processing or even working through intimacy struggles when it comes to the energy of 8th house, where your trust may have been violated or where it has not felt safe to merge or share yourself in some sort of way. There could be certain trauma that you are working through at this time. And I want to be so clear. I'm not implying that there's new trauma. A lot of times when I see Chiron energy, it's like experiences that bring about themes that were always there. That maybe we tried to work away or bury ourselves in relationship away, but it remains. And you may find that you're really wanting to do the work around understanding that, because oftentimes when there's something that we have not dealt with, there's all sorts of coping strategies and it could be such a mess to get to the root of it. And some of you may be really committed to get to the root of it, whether it's through traditional modalities like therapy, just with Saturn in the 8th house, or more spiritual modalities with Neptune there. Some of you could be really doing that work. Chiron will shift into your fellow Earth sign Taurus midway this year from June 19th until September 17th. And at that point, it will enter into your 9th house. And if any of you do have Virgo placements at 0 degrees, you will experience a Chiron trine. So some of you could get more into healing, or you can go on some sort of healing journey that's very inspiring for your overall worldview. You could be really feeling the embedded worthiness wounds that certain religions or spiritual belief systems left within you, and really wanting to work through them in order to integrate a more cohesive vision of self and vision of the world at large. And Chiron is not the only celestial body in Taurus. We also have Uranus in Taurus, finishing out a journey since 2018 until April. And so Uranus is in your 9th house from January to April, and then Chiron is in your 9th house from June to September, of course, assuming whole sign house system, actual houses, or solar houses. And with the energy of 9th house. 9th house is travel. So some of you could have new travel opportunities come your way with Uranus there. Healing travel opportunities come your way with Chiron there. Some of you could be seeking, looking for belief systems that feel very true to yourself, disrupting the mold around finding that with Uranus energy. And there could be parts of that that are healing with Chiron, but also acknowledging the pain of religious trauma or something like this could also be alive with Chiron there. I want to highlight that Uranus in Taurus will be the most felt by Virgos who have Virgo placements between 27 to 29 degrees. That means you will have a Uranus trine this year, which means this energy of integrating, trying new things will be a lot more grounding rather than Uranus square, which, as I noted earlier, could be a little bit of a plot twist. This is more so an energy around tapping into certain spiritual belief systems that really align with your overall vision of self. This could be different experiences that make you feel open to the world at large, trying new things. I want to mention to you that another territory of your chart that is very activated and alive this year is your 6th house. So Pluto will be in your 6th house an entirety of most years, honestly, from now onward for quite a long time. And it will transit your 6th house. So there can be a transformation, evolution around your work environment, your relationship with your coworkers, your health, your pets. Again, it does not do any good to freak out around, oh gosh, this is the house of health. What if something horrible happens? Some of you could be embracing different sorts of medical environments or different sort of medical models. Some of you could be revolutionizing your working environment or feel like your work processes are revolutionizing themselves. There could be major transformation, especially since North Node is moving into Aquarius and South Node is moving into Leo this year. The eclipses are going to start being largely concentrated in your 6th house and your 12th house. So the 2 eclipses outside the ones in your axis is the solar eclipse in Aquarius in February 2025 and the lunar eclipse in Leo in August 2025. The solar eclipse in February could bring about massive changes as it relates to your working world, massive changes in relation to your work processes. Again, with South Node in the 1st house, there can be an element around letting go of needing to see yourself around, I'm such a hard worker and I burn myself out in order to get the job done. Some of you could be recognizing that that sort of behavior is leading to your own demise, or it is toxic or destructive for you altogether. So there could be a new start coming in, or even for some, a new position of some sort could be opening with that eclipse, or that may be a story as we proceed onward. And then the lunar eclipse in Leo in August is around releasing any fears of visibility. You know, as a Virgo, you have Leo within your 12th house. So there can be fears around being seen, fears of your own greatness. Also, pride could be keeping you stuck or be something of your own undoing. Knowing you want to start something new, you want to try something new with Uranus at the top of your chart, but not being able to deal with the fear of failure if it doesn't work out, and that holding you back, your own ego, your own pride. There may be a nudge to release that, as well as random but bad habits, destructive habits that are bad for your heart. I do feel like with North Node moving into Aquarius, there is definitely going to be focus on your health and potentially revolutionizing your health with Pluto there. I want to wrap up our talk on supporting characters on a positive note. Let's talk about Jupiter. Jupiter will be in Cancer for the first part of the year until June 29th, which continues to expand the territory of your chart around friendship. So some of you are meeting soul family. You have met soul family, you are meeting soul family. Those of you who are online could be experiencing a growth again as it relates to your audience. Some of you could be feeling more optimistic about your hopes and dreams and feel more magnetic and bringing them to life. I would definitely recommend for my Virgos, grab hold of the first part of the year with Jupiter in the 11th house, because you may find with Jupiter moving into where it's going after June 29th, you're more inclined to come inward, to be in solitude, to close out certain cycles. We'll get into it. But with Jupiter in 11th house, you're more inclined to be out in the world, to really nourish and nurture your friendships, your colleagues, your audience. Certain dreams you've had could come into fruition. Things that you've wanted for a long time could click into place. And from June 29th onward, Jupiter will shift into Leo, which is your 12th house. Keep in mind, South Node also shifts into this territory. And 12th house is the final house of the chart. And so it is a lot about closing things out, clearing things out. And so you may find in the latter portion of this year, there is a focus around letting go or releasing. And even if we consider Jupiter in a solar sign in your 12th house, echoing that theme I was sharing around letting go of versions of yourself. You know, sometimes we grieve not just the relationship, but who we were in the relationship, not just the career path, but who we were in that career path. And there can be an energy of releasing that, or you could just find that you are craving more time in solitude. You could be more sensitive and kind of need more time in order to come back to your own energy, your inner time alone, and your time spent in solitude and in prayer could be something that's very life-giving, very revitalizing at this time. And again, there's an interesting story with Jupiter and South Node, and with North Node in 6th house, there could be elements around you're busy, and that might be why you're needing so much time alone within your own space. So you could just find the first portion of the year might be a little bit more social, and then the second part really wanting to rest, restore your energy, come back to self, and even contemplating what feels fully true to me. So Virgo, 2026 is truly a turning point. You finally have Saturn and Neptune off your back. And so you can find the ways in which you relate to others is a lot less hard with Saturn leaving you alone and a lot more real with Neptune leaving you alone. It's not to say that there will not be challenges, but you are really taking all that you have learned since 2023 in Saturn's case and 2011 in Neptune's case to continue onward. And recognizing that sometimes we go on a journey to find the love of our life just to figure out it was ourselves the entire time. And even with Jupiter in your 11th house, how your friends are the love of your life and your community and your colleagues. Again, I'm not implying that you don't have a soulmate, that you're not meeting someone significant or continuing on an existing partnership, but it's just important to know that you've got you and you never needed anyone to save you because you are going to save you. And it's knowing that soulmates and the loves of our life come in so many different forms. You know, Jupiter is in your 11th house in the first portion of the year. You could be making more friends or building a community, building an audience, and it feels very soul nourishing. Like soul family and soul connections come in so many different formats. And so it's embracing the soul contracted individuals who come into your orbit while also acknowledging with those Mercury retrogrades in your people houses, how it is that you show up and not abandoning yourself, not losing yourself within self and other. You know, sometimes when we've gone through hard times in relationships and one-on-one, we just want to disconnect. We just want to preserve ourselves. But Mercury retrograde is really asking, how is it that I can show up? How is it that I can state my boundaries? How it is that I can say what it is that I need? Because connection is worth it. And I do feel like a lot of you are stepping into these connections or any other arena of your life, fully your own person, wanting to be yourself, whether it's within your relationships or just to the world at large. A lot of you are really wanting to be yourself and recognizing that when you are authentic, you are a magnet. Not for everything, you know, Uranus at the top of our chart. Sometimes people can call us a weirdo or odd, but a magnet for the right things, the soul aligned things, which is exactly what is clicking into place for you this year in 2026. So Virgo, what a year. I would love to know, what are you looking forward to about this year ahead? How was Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house? I could sit here and I could talk for days about all that transit had in store. And I know you all have your stories as well. I wish we all could have a Virgo party and just vent about that and now celebrate that transit is over. If you're looking for a month by month look at your year ahead, which months are the most favorable for what, how to utilize the magic of 2026, make sure to check out the magic Magic 2026 month by month guide. It is a video that I take you through every single month with timestamps, so you don't have to listen to 2 hours of me talking all at once, with a 40-page PDF. So you also have the transits at a glance, the planetary motion at a glance. I also am having Capricorn new moon classes in January around the Capricorn new moon. We are gathering in small intimate circles to set our intentions for the year ahead. You will get your chart read, you will get your transits read by me, and we will all amplify one another's visions. So the information for those will be below. If you like the vibes here in my cosmic corner of the internet, make sure to subscribe, listen to my podcast, Magic Monday. But until we meet again, stay magical.